Welcome. This is Jay Larson with the Idaho Technology Council. Thank you for joining us on this May 7th on a beautiful spring day for our weekly podcast, Innovation Matters. A little different from last week when we had a very violent spring storm hit the Boise area. This day we have a beautiful spring day and we have a fantastic lineup. But first, the thought of the week is from Peter Marshall, who said, "A different world cannot be built by indifferent people." We need to bring energy, vision, tenacity, and fire to help in the causes that we want to change. And right now, we need to do that to be able to power through COVID-19. So join us today, Lynn Hoffman, CEO of Intermountain 3D, who will be discussing 3D printing technology and how it is helping during this COVID-19 period. And we also have Dan Puga, president from In Time Tech, who will be joining us to discuss how they are adapting to COVID with multiple offices across continents. But first, Sean Robbins, president of Regence BlueShield of Idaho, is joining us. Sean, welcome.
For having me. I'm glad to be on with you and this awesome panel.
Yeah, thanks, Sean. So Sean, talk a little bit. So you moved to Boise 2 years ago. You're a Badger. You graduated from University of Wisconsin.
I did.
Congratulations. So what do you think of Boise and Idaho?
Well, Jay, I've got two young kids who are 13 and 11, and I've been married for 15 years. So I've learned by this point to gauge how I like it by how they like it. And they love it. I love it. Our family has really settled in wonderfully in the last couple of years. I mean, there's really not a lot to love about this place and the people. But I think actually it reminds us a lot of Wisconsin, where we're from. Smaller state, smaller community, more tight-knit, focus on kind of a natural resource base and outdoor economy. Some of that similarity has bled over into our experience here in Idaho. So it feels a lot like home and where we're from. But the landscape is a little prettier to look at here, I'll have to admit.
There's a lot of neat things about it. But I was in Madison a year ago, and I was amazed at the beauty of the state capitol, the four corners of that, and University of Wisconsin's amazing, the medical school there. So a lot of things that we want you to help us grow here. All right, Sean.
Yep.
So
yeah.
But let's get going into this. Regence BlueShield of Idaho has been a big driver regarding the healthcare delivery system in Idaho. How has COVID-19 changed the healthcare system, delivery system in Idaho?
The probably right answer is to say it's changing as we speak. Where we're 7-8 weeks full into this pandemic, although it really started in January globally, but at least in our state, the last 6 to 8 weeks. And I think the ecosystem, you could kind of split up the ecosystem between the providers, who are your hospitals and your physician groups, your payers, those are your insurance companies like Regence BlueShield or Blue Cross of Idaho, Pacific Source, Select Health, and then you have your purchasers, so employers, small businesses, large businesses, individuals, Medicare. And so those three groups interact within the healthcare system. And I would say right now, what's changing the most, which you get the most ink about in the news, is digital ink, by the way, because nobody reads paper much anymore. But you get a lot of news coverage about the hospitals and the physician practices who are bearing the brunt of this, and they've had drastic changes in patient volume, their revenue cycle on patient volume, and the suspension of elective procedures, as well as the preparation around what thankfully has not been an onslaught here in Idaho. Some of our other states around the country have experienced, like New York, particularly, or the Seattle area, Louisiana, New Orleans, some of those places. That's on the provider side, but the consumer side and the people who purchase the care, we've seen a really rapid migration to telehealth. And so as the facilities themselves have been shut down or suspended from having a lot of elective procedures, you still have people who need care. I mean, though you'd think just by reading the newspaper that the only health issue that people are facing is COVID these days. There are still cardiac events, there are still people with diabetes and cardiac issues. There are still people dealing with cancer. And so healthcare goes on. But for a lot of the, what I would call low-hanging fruit procedures and or consultations, consumers are finding their way into the telehealth world. It has been there a long time, but we've always seen really low utilization because people have been kind of culturally trained to go to the doctor and sit in the waiting room. So we've seen huge spikes in telehealth utilization on the consumer side as a result of COVID, and that's something that may last far into the future.
Is that I was talking with Reed Steffen from the St. Louis system, who's talked about how I guess it was Medicare who has now changed the way that they're paying and compensating for telemedicine, meaning that they're considering the same as if you're doing an in-clinic visit. So right. Is that the same thing that's happening with Regence? Are you guys doing the same type of thing there?
We are. In fact, as soon as things really sped up, all of us as payers at Regence, we started to look at how is this going to change the environment. And one of the things we needed to do really quickly is we changed how we paid providers for telehealth visits. We now pay a telehealth visit at the same rate as if you or I were in our doctor's office in person. And that is something that all the plans did over time, and something I suspect could be again back kind of a last impact of this going into the future, because I think there'll be higher volume of that as well.
Well, Cambia has always been looking, which is your parent company, right? Cambia out of Portland. It's always been looking at different ways to be able to deliver healthcare, really this digital transformation. So I would see that telehealth is probably part of that. What else is part of this digital transformation that's going to help a consumer be much more effective with their healthcare management?
So for folks who don't know about how we're structured, Regence BlueShield is an independent blue. So there's 36 blue plans across America. There's only 5 places actually in America where the blues are separate. Usually the cross and the shield are together into one company. Idaho is one of the 5 where BlueShield and Blue Cross are actually separate companies. And about 26 years ago, our board of directors for Regence basically acknowledged where the puck was going, to use a metaphor from the Midwest. Skate where the puck is going, not where it is. And where the puck was going is, and I think has largely been true, is scale matters in the delivery and the payment of health care. And one state blue is going to find it hard to innovate over time. It doesn't scale to get larger membership concentration. So in the late 90s, we created an affiliation with Can't Health Solutions, which covers Utah, Washington, Oregon, and our relationship with them out of Idaho. One of the fruits of that relationship has been a concentrated focus on technology innovation within the healthcare space. And in the last few years, we've been working to, honestly, Jay, reimagine the entire consumer experience around how people access their healthcare. Today, you or I may have 10, 12 different point solutions that we have to navigate to. Our employer may purchase wellness, they may purchase telehealth, they may purchase a pharmacy price transparency tool, a provider search tool, and 3 to 4% of the employees use it. It's a hard justification to make for long-term ROI, in part because I think consumers are confused by all the different places they have to go, so they don't. Usually people navigate to care when they need it, not when they don't need it. So what we've done is we've essentially created a single sign-on experience through mobile technology, but backed by human beings, so that essentially you have a high-touch concierge model where an individual tied to your health plan could access all those resources in a single location that's connected to your financing of your health insurance, that you could get all of that suite of solutions in one experience. So you could chat, for example, with a nurse through HIPAA compliant communication, but in that same experience, shop your pharmacy prescription, looking at the generic pricing versus the branded pricing, looking at the efficacy of drugs and making a smart choice. Also in that same place, consolidating all of your health records in that same experience, because right now, even the basics are hard to get of me as an individual, as a father, going out and getting out my own health records from each different provider, let alone the health records for my two kids who are 13 and 11. So again, building the caregiver into that experience. So I can see my son's health records next to my health records. I can see who treated him. That type of experience in that type of application is what I think people are going to expect more and more from their health insurance company. And we're trying to skate to get to that puck first in terms of delivering that technology innovation to consumers. And COVID's kind of exacerbated push to get there.
I could see that. So you're trying to be the Gretzky of healthcare delivery. I like that.
That's a good reference. That's a good.
Do you, so this is kind of a nexus point that you're talking about right now. So you have a nexus. So all of those people who utilize Regence will have this nexus where they bring all the points together so they can manage their healthcare and be healthier, which hopefully will reduce the cost of delivery to that family or that individual, right?
Over time, that is my hope. This product, which is called Journey with an I, but Journey because of the healthcare journey we're all on, is I would love to see it in the hands of every Regence customer over time, so they can do a telehealth visit, the medical records, the pharmacy comparison, the provider search, the chatting with the nurse, and can ditch all of the unused applications and logins they've got scattered all over hither. And eventually, Jay, it moves with them. Yeah. So if you're a Regence customer today, but your employer changes health insurance coverage, they could still take the Journey experience with them and put it into their next insurer. Because ultimately what I care about is are we taking care of the person? Are we taking care of that family, no matter who's providing their insurance? Now that sounds like a silly thing to say for a business, that I would allow it to plug into somebody else's insurance. But ultimately we think that consumers in the future, this is kind of COVID, it's been a long arc, but I think COVID will exacerbate it. Consumers have to take charge of their own healthcare. And eventually, more and more of the controls and the steering wheel are going to be given to consumers. And they're going to be given the opportunity, but also the responsibility to be educated and empowered to make those decisions. And so as a result, they're going to demand that we give them that type of tool and technology and transparency.
Yeah, that education and empowerment is going to be critical in that, isn't it, Sean? Because you've made good decisions when you're educated and you're informed, but that's what we have to drive. So if you look into the future, talk to us about what you see in happening with healthcare maybe 5 years from now. Where do you see where you're going to skating toward that puck is 5 years from now? What do you see?
One thing, Jay, will be tighter integration between the payers and the providers, I think. And what I mean by that is really much of the healthcare system still operates or runs on kind of an old chassis, where the entire system was set up around paying for volume. Fee for service is what it's called. And so if you as a doc or a hospital, you do more, you get paid more. And the problem with the incentive in the system is that it's really not paying for people for quality and for outcomes and for the health of people. It's paying to do more stuff. That drives inflation. Over time, that's how healthcare has gotten extremely expensive. Where the puck is going in that space is, and it's going to reward those organizations and businesses who can partner together and share the risk. So a really forward-leaning, quality-driven healthcare delivery system partnering with a payer system to not reimburse for volume, but to reimburse for quality outcomes. CMS, so Medicare and the Medicaid programs, have started this in earnest about a decade ago. Commercial payers are joining forces with provider systems to try to basically deconstruct and then reconstruct how we have a financial relationship together that rewards the outcome, not the number of tests that they did. And so if you have a cardiac event, for example, the incentive isn't for the patient to be seen 3 more times so that you can bill more to your insurance company. The incentive needs to be that the cardiac event is followed by a very quiet 12 months because that patient's been so well taken care of, they don't have to have any more inpatient admissions, and then rewarding the systems for that outcome, not the volume, if that makes sense.
Oh yes, that makes total sense. Volume is not the answer here, is it? It's about having make sure it's targeted and that the customer or consumer manages their healthcare much more aggressively. So
that's right.
So Sean, this is a last question for you. Now, over the last 3 months, I see that you're working from home. I also know that in the healthcare space, whenever I go to the physician over the last 5 years, 6 years, I go in there and I sit across the chair, 2 chairs in this waiting room. I'm in the medical room, and I just talk to my physician. She's wonderful. But the only thing that did before is they just took some blood from me to be able to get the diagnostic on it, and then to that. So this whole telemedicine, all the things you've been doing over the last 3 months, it's transforming the way we do business now with respect to the medical industry, right?
It is. It is, Jay, and it's I think it's actually, if there's a silver lining, and there are many silver linings we'll learn over time, but I do believe one of the silver linings is that individuals and their families are beginning to become accustomed to this way of communication. This video technology and infrastructure has been available to us as businesses, organizations, as families, and society. But this has exacerbated, accelerated our move as people to getting comfortable with this format of talking to each other. I suspect that telehealth is having the same experience. There's a lot of things you have gone into your primary care doctor before that, to your point, was it necessary for you to actually be there, and as a result, by the way, incur the facility fee that you were charged for it, and incur the office visit fee that you were charged for it, on top of the lab test fees that they filed claims for? Those all go to your insurance company, and that's what drives the cost of healthcare up. So I think, there will always be a role for the in-person consultation because there are clearly conditions that require it and demand it. But there's a fair in the healthcare system that doesn't, and we're going to get comfortable with that in the future.
Well, we really look forward to having your leadership here, Sean. We're glad that you're in Idaho, you and your family, and that you're leading Regence. And we look forward to seeing the digital transformations taking place because all the work that's taking place and the pivots that are taking place because of COVID-19. I also have a rash I want to show you. No, I'm just kidding. I don't have one. I just, thank you. And now, you know what? I want to make sure you're here. Well, we have Lynn Hoffman with Intermountain 3D. She's on your board, right?
That's correct. In fact, Lynn is our vice chairman of our board.
Oh, is that right? Okay, very, very nice. So she's coming on next to talk about what Intermountain 3Ds have. So why don't you welcome her to Innovation Matters?
Oh man, put me on the spot, but in a good way, Jay. Lynn Hoffman is by far a phenomenal leader on our board, and she will be my chair. So she'll actually be my boss at some point here in the very near future, at least next year. So I love Lynn. I've enjoyed working with Lynn. She's got a really cool story to share about what her organization did to pivot in COVID that I think is a great example of the Idaho way. So Lynn, I'll let you and Jay take it away.
Thanks so much, Sean. Lynn, welcome. Thank you, Sean. Lynn, we were so honored to have you part of Innovation Matters. Talk to us a little bit about why you started Intermountain 3D.
My husband and I, Brian and I, are both ex-HP folks, and I left HP quite a few years ago and went off and did something else for a while. In fact, I have to put in a little plug because today is the last day for Idaho Gives, which is something that I created at the Idaho Nonprofit Center when I led that organization. And so don't forget to get online and make your contribution if you haven't already to Idaho Gives.
Lynn, you are a force. I mean, that was great what you did there. You did fantastic things at HP, and so that's awesome. So we'll make sure we do that. But
Good.
This is kind of fun. I wanted to hear how you and Brian started Intermountain 3D.
Well, when he was ready to leave HP, he had always had a goal of owning a small business at some point. And we'd been looking at a lot of different kinds of businesses to purchase and kind of thinking about what his skills are, which are, strong in the engineering and manufacturing side, and my skills on the business side, and had looked at several, got pretty far down the path of buying a fairly large business. And that just wasn't going the way we wanted. And one day, kind of driving back from a call, we said, why don't we start a 3D printing company? I mean, this is something particularly Brian has been following that technology for years, and we felt like it was up and coming and nobody else was doing it at all. And so we launched. We actually had our official opening just about 5 years ago in March of 2015. Although we did have a funny thing. We got pressure to purchase our first 3D printer in October, and they delivered it. And they told me they delivered it. And I said, but we don't even have a building. We have and these printers are not small. They don't fit in your garage. So we had to scramble to get a building and everything else. So between the end of October and March, we were busy getting ready for the launch. And we really have focused on trying to figure out how do we transform and help other people transform manufacturing in the Intermountain West. I sometimes tell folks we do everything from plumbing supplies to high-end art for a New York gallery. So the kinds of projects that come across our front door are really varied and really interesting. The most fun thing of this whole business is the people we get to work with in such a wide range of businesses.
It is amazing. I've watched the things you do. Just why don't you tell the audience a little bit about some of the key products that you've manufactured over. I mean, because it's very interesting how you deal in multiple industries. So please tell us about that.
We do, and there's not a whole lot that I can say. A lot of work we do is under NDA, as you can imagine. But as I mentioned, we really do, as long as people are coming in with, for the most part, professional needs. So they've got some experience in engineering or CAD. They've got a part that they need, sometimes a physical part that they need to reverse engineer it and some modifications made before they remanufacture it. And so, it is open to the imagination. And we really do work with everybody from a first-time entrepreneur who we kind of help all the way from concept through creating the design, getting some prototyping into some short-run production, to really talented, advanced engineers who are looking for help kind of on the short-run production side and into the full-blown manufacturing.
How has COVID-19 changed some of the, or what type of focus have you had with COVID-19?
Well, it was interesting. I got an email from a customer of ours just as this whole thing started blowing up, and he said, "Hey, have you thought about printing masks?" And he sent me this design. It's out of Montana. There was a dentist and a doc out of Montana that created what's now called the Montana mask. And so I was literally looking at this design, and I got this random call from a guy who said, "Well, this is Dr. Kalambawala." Say that fast 3 times. And I was wondering if you would you consider printing masks? And I said, "Well, gee, funny you should say that." He said, "Can I come in?" He came over. The upshot is that we took the basic idea of the Montana mask, which is this using a square here for the filter, but we radically redesigned what Montana was doing. Montana was suggesting everybody goes out and use their little desktop filament printers to print these respirators or masks for their hospitals, but they don't seal very well because of that technology is kind of clunky and a little hard to get a seal. So we completely redesigned this. We created a different contour so that it fits to the face better. It's a very thin and flexible material that you can see. But the basic idea of being able to swap out this mask, this filter material, is something that a doc out of University of Florida figured out that this surgical wrap has the same properties as N95. And so we got very interested in this. We worked with our Doc Columbawala, and he brought us some of this surgical wrap. The hospitals evidently just throw it away in bags. It comes out of their autoclave, all sterile when they're using it for tools, but then they just toss it. And so he brought us bags and we started testing. And so we had him we created this little, little fabric square that we insert into the mask. And then he took it into the hospital. He and Brian fit tested it at the hospital, which is this fancy way that I guess you go under a hood and you get a saccharin spray at you. And if you can smell anything, then it's leaking. But if you can't, then it's a successful seal. And so that's how we created all of this. There were some really interesting fits and starts. I mean, one of the things I love about this story is that being Idaho, before we figured out this filter, this was the biggest problem. And Montana was having the same problem. They were recommending that you use the HEPA filters like you do in a furnace. And so I called furnace people and I said, what do you think about this? And one guy said, well, other than the fact that you can't breathe through it, it'd be great. And the next guy said, well, other than the fact that when you breathe, or that this thing degrades in heat and moisture, and then you're starting to breathe in glass particles, he said, I think it'd be a great idea. So we thought, okay, that's not going to work. So, again, being Idaho, I just talked to somebody who talked to somebody who talked to somebody, and suddenly I was talking to the head of the supply chain at Micron. And he said, well, let me call China. He said, we can't get any of, this N95 material here, but let me talk to our folks in China. And he came back 2 days later and said, Chinese government won't let any of this material leave. I'm sure some have heard that story, but so anyways, we were back at square one trying to figure out what to do. And then this University of Florida doc came through with this idea. So we just started producing these masks and literally, the easy part is the printing. So we can print, we have stacks of these things that we print in volume. We print, 150 or something at a time.
Show me the inside of that. Can you show me the inside?
Yeah, so there's a little, what we print is a little wedge, I guess you would call it. So there's an opening in the mask. I was actually sitting here assembling masks, so that's what I'm doing. So there's an opening here, and then there you put this filter in between, and then essentially clamp it down there. Yeah. And
that's one that a physician or somebody in a hospital would be able to use, and it's going to keep them safe from COVID-19.
Yes, and interestingly, we sold a lot in the last couple of weeks. All of our supply has gone to dentists in Idaho because turns out all the docs took all the PPE, and they of course were reopening their offices last week, and they had no protective gear. And boy, you think about somebody who really needs it when you're all that aerated. Yeah.
Well, I'm you know what, Lynn, I'm still over here trying to say Columbo Wally or whatever 3 times fast. My tongue is still tied. So thanks for putting me through that. But really quickly, so this is kind of fun for us because what you truly are is you're truly an entrepreneur that's helping solve problems. Whether somebody brings a prototype that they're trying to figure out how they can make, or you're doing this COVID-19 respirator, that's what you do at Intermountain 3D, right?
It is. Yes, that's what we hope we do. We hope that we're helping people figure out what they want to do, and how they can get something actually made. And I'll just say quickly, I know we're at the end of the time, but I was thinking you had asked me a question earlier about, where is 3D printing going? And
Yeah.
one of the things that I think is interesting, and I don't know the answer to this, I'm just going to throw this out there and other minds can maybe think about this, but one of the things that 3D printing is many things it's really great at is, it's fast. You can do this iterative design like we did on these masks. We had prototypes up in a day and then made lots of modifications. We have a fluidity between the digital world and the physical world. So we can take a physical object and get it into digital bits. We can take, bits and get it into an object. There's much less waste. It's always ready. We never have to think about prepping CNC machines or doing something else or even tending them for that matter. We press print and we walk out and spend the weekend away. So I think about all of these things that 3D printing really and additive manufacturing can do. What it can't do is to get to volume fast, and it can't do it cheap. But I find myself, this is my question I wanted to throw out to folks is, are we at a point where we're starting to think about being willing to pay a little bit more to have something that is completely personalized to you? So one of the things that somebody came to me 2 days ago, and a dentist, and he showed me this design that University of San Francisco created. And it's a little clamp. I don't know what else you would call it. It's like a ring that fits over a standard mask. But when you apply it, it seals so that it's like an N95 mask. And what's interesting about it is the University of San Francisco folks, they have a little app where you take a photo of your face, and then their software creates this little printable clamp. And so he said, can you do this? We said, absolutely. And so that to me is an example of the power of 3D printing.
Yeah.
Could we get away from producing N95 masks, which by the way, people hate to wear, and have something that is a little easier to breathe through, but it's completely personalized to your face.
Yeah, that custom part is really good, and the same thing with custom shoes or ski boots or
orthotics. Right, we do orthotics. All the Invisalign braces are done with 3D printed.
Yeah, molds. And yeah. I'm 100% that I would tell you I'd pay more for the for the customized type thing. The idea that's going to happen in the future is when the next iteration takes place, is so maybe this 3D steps into a much more mass production type thing. But I know that right now 3D printing has revolutionized the way you start thinking about things like what you're doing with 3D printing. And 5 years ago, it was really somebody that I love to use the words, it was sexy technology, and it still is, isn't it? Because because the custom part of that is so unique in what it delivers to what you're able to do. Now, last question for you. Are you going to get into mass production on these? I'm sure you are on these respirators. Is that what you're going to be getting into, or is it?
No,
no, okay.
Because literally, I'm spending my nights, buying elastic off of Etsy and cutting it into 16-inch strips and buying window seal. We buy window seal from Home Depot to make the seal. Yeah. So no, we're not. No.
Last time I used that is when I was putting a air conditioner sill around something. That's good. That's even better. You're doing. Yeah. See, you're so creative. Hey, Lynn. You and Brian. So Lynn, thank you for being part of this. You are just absolutely wonderful. And I want you to know our next, we're going to bring in Dan Puga. Dan is with In Time Tech, as you know, and I believe that Brian was a mentor of his when he was over at HP, when they both worked at HP. Isn't that, or did you know that, Lynn?
Well, I know, but that's nice to hear, Dan.
Yeah.
And I also know Lynn also, but yes, when I moved from disk drive division, when they shut her down, to printing, I was working in John Finch's organization, and Brian was my first mentor in that group. Yeah.
It's pretty impressive. So, well, anyway, Lynn, thank you so much, and tell Brian hi and everything. And we really appreciate, we'll have you on in the future again. Okay.
Thanks, Jay. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Lynn. All right, Dan Puga, Thanks for being part of us, Dan. In Time Tech and the Idaho Technology Council have something in common in that you've been very instrumental in helping us grow the Idaho Technology Council and our mission, but we basically started the same time 11 years ago. So talk to us about why was In Time Tech created? Why did you and Jeet Kumar start In Time Tech? And tell us a little bit about that journey.
Yeah, sure. Well, first I want to acknowledge that I would have loved to have had Jeet be a part of this. And Jeet's still in India. He lives here in Eagle. His family's here in Eagle. We had our spring celebration trip to India, and he stayed for a few extra weeks because of his commitment to developing and growing leaders. He had a few offsites with some of our next gen leaders, and those were going on. And then all of a sudden, domestic flights got canceled, and then international flights got canceled. And so he's still in India trying to. I wouldn't say he's trying hard to figure out how to get home. He's looking at options to getting home and making the best out of the situation that he's in. And that's just the kind of leader that he is. He's very good at just dealing with what is so. Not that it's a problem, not that it's disrupting his peace. He spends time with his family, but yeah, they miss him. And I would have loved to have had him be a part of this panel. And the reason why is that he, go ahead.
No, I just going to say, Dan, I got an email from Jeet, and he was talking about how he was trying to get onto a plane that was it looked like there was a U.S. government.
There's some repatriation flights they're trying to they've organized 2 sets of them so far, where they're trying to bring people from that are U.S. citizens back to the U.S. and taking people who are Indian citizens back to India. And so they're trying to do that in as responsible a way as possible. So he's submitted to try to get on one of those flights to come home. Yeah.
Well, good luck with that. I know I had my nephew fly from Salt Lake to on a Southwest flight about 2 weeks ago from Salt Lake to Florida, and he was the only person on that flight. It was crazy. But anyway, but go ahead. Let's talk about what's going on.
So I would have loved to have him actually answer that question, because Jeet is really the catalyst for the creating of In Time Tech. And even growing up, he grew up in India, and he just looked at life like, life could be better for me and life could be better for others. He lived on he grew up, it was rough. It was rough for him. You can imagine any third world country growing up. And around 2006, he started making some shifts, like it's time for me to go do something else to make a real contribution to the planet, if you will, to the communities that I've been a part of, and to not leave a legacy. He's not about leaving legacies. It's about inspiring people to be their best. So I don't want to undermine that. And so we had gotten connected at HP, and we really clicked. I mean, we only known each other for a very short period of time. He'd already been working with Sandeep, and they'd been doing some real estate investments. He just knew he needed to do something different. And his wife Biju had mentioned, hey, you've been in software for a long time. Why not start a software business? And that's what led him, in that time he was visiting the US, we were on a flight together, and he just said, hey, have you ever thought of starting a software company? And, I had actually been thinking about it. I had been seeing life. I might be on the wrong road, is what I looked at. And so I'm grateful to this day that I got connected with Jeet, who then connected me with Sandeep. And we have other business partners, Rakesh and Matt, and I want to make sure we talk about that as well. And the 5 of us have been together for 11 years now. And it's been a great experience, and it's definitely had its ups and downs and highs and lows. And yet there's such a loving commitment from Jeet and each other that we've worked through a lot of stuff. And so that's how we got to where we are.
It's actually a great story. So I know that you've had some pivots over the last 11 years. What are a couple of the top pivots you would like to talk about?
I know. It's like airing your dirty laundry. It's really fun, Jay.
Yeah, sorry. Well, I don't want you to do that. I'm just glad you have laundry that you're using during the COVID-19 time.
There's been some, we've talked many times in our past about we've wanted to be a product company, although we started as a services company. And there's been some times where we almost thought we were a product company, and we came to realize that we really weren't. So we had a partnership with the company, and we were primarily a distributor, but yet we lost our way, if you will. And I mean, me specifically, and some of our other founders, of getting drawn into, okay, hey, wow, we're finally a product business, but we had lost who we had set out to be. And there's been a few other bumps like that. And Jeet could see that we were, to go back to what Sean said, yeah, that's not where the puck was going. We actually lost our way. And getting us back, he took it on his shoulders to say, let's go build our business our company the way we want to build our company. And he's been a great mentor and coach for all of us as co-founders and developing people, I would say. And that helped us get reconnected, like, oh yeah, that's why we started this. See, there's a lot of fear that shows up, and I'm sure Lynn can share that in entrepreneurship. It's like, okay, are we making it? Are we not making it? I left a salary position, what's happening? And that fear can cause someone to make choices that are actually counter to who they really are and what they're up to. And it took us a while to get at the essence of who we really are and what we're up to. And I use we loosely. I'm talking about me specifically. I don't think Jeet ever really lost his way. I mean, there's times he may have lost his voice, but he's always been that powerful driving force that's always taking us forward globally. So that's why I miss him dearly, although I talk with him almost every morning.
Well, that's what I love about it, Dan, is I've been able to see the growth and maturity and everything take place within Time Tech, and you've been really a strong force there. So talk about how COVID-19 has disrupted or caused In Time Tech to pivot.
Yeah, that's great. We have about 450 employees in India, and it was a pretty rapid deceleration. I flew back on March 9th, and within a week, things were starting to spin, and the whole country got shut down. Like, you can't even be out of your house or your apartment or whatever. And so fortunately for us, because we have a pretty mobile workforce, because we do a lot of night calls with our clients here in the US, et cetera, people were able to take laptops home, get set up, and keep the work going. Same in the US side. So while there's definitely challenges with that, we had already built those muscles over a period of time, so that shift wasn't as challenging. And yet I have a tremendous amount of empathy for a group of people who can't even go outside, really, right? And it's just the population density and the risks are high there. At the same time, yeah, we've had some clients that we've lost or that have slowed down or delayed projects to start, and others are still growing. And what I can share with you is my month of March was supposed to be on the road in a bunch of trade shows and doing a bunch of stuff, and instead I'm home reading books, thinking, reflecting. And this is like that chapter 7 of the 7 habits. This is the sharpen the saw time. And so we've been taking a lot of time looking at how are we pursuing our projects for revenue and growth? Are we over invested in our product side and not really taking a hard look at the investment curve is going at a higher angle than our revenue curve? Those both need to have a point where they cross and they keep growing farther apart. What are we doing about that? And so we've actually taken this is a great time to like retool for us, take a real hard look at things. And Sean shared some of that stuff earlier, just like maybe telemedicine and other things this created an opportunity to just look at how do we want to actually move forward, where it's quality of outcome, not, pay for service. And as Lynn shared, looking for opportunities for customization, and people may want to pay more. So it's that time of like really taking a pause and reflecting. And I know Jeet, I share with him, we talk a lot, and he's like on a retreat right now, just really sharpening his skills, his focus, our financials, everything is getting a hard look so that when we come out of this, we are ready to take off like a rocket. That's what I would say has been probably one of the bigger impacts.
So you're kind of, you've been doing a lot of wonderful things, but allows you to reassess, because you've been growing. I've been amazed at how much you've grown the operations, obviously over in India, but also the operations you have here in Boise and Meridian has grown significantly. So that being the case,
we have like 60 people now in the US, And 2 years ago, we had like 22.
Wow.
So it's been quite a big ride on that growth side for sure.
Dan, you know, it's always like this, behind you, the painting that's on the wall, the creating abundance. I know we had Steve Young came and spoke at one of our Hall of Fame, and one of his primary deal was abundant thought, win-win propositions, all these things. And every time I talk with you or Jeet, Jeet's always it's phenomenal how this philosophy just keeps on going. Can you talk about the abundant philosophy that you have?
Yeah, sure. I'd love to. And, you know, I'm going to put a plug in. Jeet has actually published his first book, and it came out like about a week ago, maybe 2 weeks ago. Anyway, I downloaded on my Kindle. I don't have the paper copy because I'm not that patient. And and I've pretty much read it through the weekend. It's a series of articles, and the title of the book is Insights into Creating Abundance, Emerging as a Powerful Human Being and an Inspiring Leader. And he's got a lot of great tips on that. And I'll give you the summary. See, if you reflect on what is the opposite of abundance, it's scarcity. And in a world where there's scarcity, in order for me to win, you have to lose. And I have to manipulate and, you know, make sure I survive. It becomes a survival instinct. There's no thriving in that kind of a mindset. Whereas creating abundance is, you know, our brand promise, ROI or don't pay. Like if we do work for you and you don't get value out of it, don't pay us, because that we're here to create business value. And if that's not what we're doing, then that's not what, then don't worry about it. And so we spend a lot of time with our employees in a 360-degree way, right? It's creating abundance for our employees. It's creating abundance for our clients. It's creating abundance for our community. That's why we get involved in lots of different things. And in our mind, a lot of people spend life doing stuff in order to have stuff so that one day they might be happy. And in our world, it's focused on the being, the way of being, the state of being. Be joyful, be happy, be peaceful. Then the doing and the having just are natural outcomes of that. So yes, Jeet's stranded in India right now. And if you were to talk to him, you'd never know at all. Because he says, you know, we can choose our way of being. And when we do that, the people around us experience that. So that's a lot of what creating abundance is about, Jay.
I love that. And you're making the most of where you are today, because that will make a better future.
Absolutely. And you're in a situation, COVID-19 is a real thing.
Yeah.
Now being mad about it's not going to change it. Right?
Yeah.
Being frustrated, pissed off, it's not going to change that. The fact is there's COVID-19. So then you just accept it and deal with what's so. It gives you a lot more peace and choice.
No, I love it. I love that, Dan. And I love that you guys, that's kind of the philosophy. That's the in time tech way. I love it. So, okay, future, last question for you. Future, what's the future of in time tech?
Future of in time tech. I saw that in the question. I thought that's going to be fun. Here's what I can share with you. We always talk in this language. The past cannot be changed and the future is unknown by design. What can be done is a commitment and a declaration to creating a future. I think Abraham Lincoln said the best way to predict the future is to create it.
Yeah.
Right. And so for us, we don't really know, but we're up to playing big games. And so in order to play big games, what kind of people do we need to be in order for big games to show up? Not fearful, not restricted by past circumstances or situations, but seeing what might be possible and having the courage to be a stand for that, whether that's growing our product. I mean, there's the simple things like, yeah, we want to grow our product business. And yet we had an offsite before we came home. And Jeet said, like, so what are the things you as founders want to accomplish in the platform we've created called In Time Tech? And we shared some things. And he says, so why aren't those things done yet? Fear, looking good, avoid looking bad, you know, laziness. It's like, yeah, there's not enough of a commitment as if your life depends on it. And a lot of people spend life like that, Jay. It's a one day, someday phenomenon of human beings. Now, as we get older, we start to realize that one days and some days are not, they're ticking off, right? And yet, so our commitment is to like, okay, we want to grow a business. How am I going to get up and generate myself from morning to evening such that that happens? And if it doesn't happen, I'm not going to beat myself up over it. I'm going to be at that I gave my 100%. If my 100% wasn't enough, how do I increase my 100% next time? That's how we're looking at the future.
Yeah, and you have vision on this, and it's not a fear mentality. It's a very proactive way of living life. I love it.
Responsibility versus victim. That's the way we look at life.
Dan, you've been awesome, man. This is we'll have you on again, and we'll have Jeet when he gets back from India, which I hope is soon. And we really appreciate all that you do at In Time Tech. Thanks for being a leader in our community, a business leader, and may In Time Tech have great success. So thanks, Dan.
Great, thank you, Jay. And it was a pleasure actually meeting you, Sean, and listening to what you're up to, Lynn, as well. It's great.
That's good. Well, thank you so much, Dan. Thank you so much to Sean, Lynn, and Dan for being part of Innovation Matters. Again, the thought we had today was more about our ability to focus on the future of what we're doing today to be able to help drive a bigger future. So next week, we'll have Steve Soleil, CEO of Ataraxis PEO, Kristen Ruffing, who's the VP of IT and Relationship Manager for AmerisourceBergen or MWI Animal Health, and Greg Wilson, who's the Senior Policy Advisor for the Office of the Governor. So again, a different world cannot be built by indifferent people. Let's make sure we bring vision and tenacity and fire to help us in this cause to help beat COVID-19. Thanks. This is Jay Larson with the Idaho Technology Council, helping keep you connected with industry and government, because in Idaho, innovation matters. Have a good day.